Yo, my name is Max,
Yo, and I'm Alpay.
and you are watching.
Racing or ping pong?
Hello.
Hey, honestly, what are we doing? Racing or ping pong?
I love your sense of humor.
No.
Welcome to another video on your most favorite YouTube channel with your hosts Alpay.
And Max.
First of all, thank you for 50 subscribers, but sadly I didn't have time to record something because of my exam for my driver's license. But I wish you fun for this episode with Max and racing or ping pong.
Thanks, Alpa, and also best of luck for your exam from my side. But let's start with our topic of today. We are in the summer break, and it means silly season. Last year, Danny Ric screwed up the market with his sudden move from Red Bull Racing to Renault for the season. In this silly season, all eyes are on Mercedes and Renault. But let us first talk about the two teams which already announced their two drivers for 2020, McLaren and Ferrari. McLaren stay with their 2019 drivers. Sainz is probably driving the best season of his F1 career, and Norris has a remarkable debut season so far. Also, McLaren made a huge progress since the disaster in 2015, and this year they are the fourth fastest team, so why should they change their drivers? Ferrari's season is not so good, sadly. They still wait for a win this year, although they were very close to it in Bahrain, Austria and Canada. But they also stay with Vettel and Charles Leclerc in 2020. There were lots of rumors concerning Vettel's future and if he will retire. But I personally think that there is no need for him to retire after 2019. Leclerc surprised many people as he is very consistent and also sometimes better than his teammate, who is a four-time world champion. Sadly, his first victory chances got robbed by his engine in Bahrain and Verstappen in Austria. But he's definitely a superb driver for Ferrari, and he has the potential to win world titles and to be one of the big boys in Formula 1. He only has to work off his self-critical emotion and his mistakes a bit, but he is still 21, so he has time for that. For the other 8 teams, it's still a mystery who will drive for them in 2020. Also for Williams. This season is a catastrophe for the legendary team and maybe the worst since a long time. In the first half of the season, they only scored 1 point due to penalties for both Alphas, and Robert Kubica going up into P10 to score his first points since 2010. If Kubica will race in 2020 again? I sadly don't think so. He's a legend and his comeback is one of the greatest stories in Formula 1, but to be honest, the results in the race are often far away from the rest of the field, and also teammate George Russell, who's confirmed as a 2020 Williams driver after Toto Wolff said that he isn't a candidate for a Mercedes seat yet. So who will race alongside him when Kubica won't compete anymore in 2020? Easy answer, and maybe the only one, Nicholas Latifi. After some seasons in Formula 2, he's finally ready for an F1 seat in 2020, and Williams gets a driver who's on a level with George Russell. Moving on to Haas. After solid first seasons for the team, 2019 is a disaster, with good qualifyings but really bad performances in the races. Kevin Magnussen was better than Romain Grosjean, but it can be the last Haas season for both of them. But I don't think it will be the end for both. Just for Romain, I'm a bit sad because I think he won't race in Formula 1 2020 anymore. Magnussen will stay with them for sure, so they have only one seat to fill. But who will fill it? It's time for the big Mercedes-Renault monopoly to answer it. Mercedes is going to be a 6-time Constructors' World Champion after the season. Hamilton maybe too. But for the drivers. He has a contract for 2020, but who will race alongside the Brit? Bottas' future is not confirmed, and they've promised their current reserve driver Esteban Ocon a seat next year. But Bottas is maybe driving his best Mercedes season ever. I wouldn't like to be on Toto Wolff's mind now, because he has to make a tough decision which can affect the future, as Ocon is still very young. There were some rumors, some for holding on to Bottas, some on Ocon, and some rumors that the Frenchman will be racing for Renault on loan for 1 or 2 seasons. So there are 2 possibilities which then nearly decide the whole 2020 grid. Possibility 1. Bottas stays at Mercedes. Ocon would either go to Renault on loan, as the rumors say, go back to Force India / Racing Point / Stroll's dad, or switch to Formula E, for example. Ocon to Renault, that would mean Nico Hülkenberg would be kicked out, as Daniel Ricciardo has a contract for next year, and the Hulk could fill the second seat at Haas. That's the most likely solution for the Mercedes problem. Then Perez would also stay at Racing Point for sure. But if Ocon goes to Racing Point, then he would kick out exactly Perez. But as Hulk then has the opportunity to stay at Renault or to be replaced by Aitken, Perez can switch to Haas. You can already see the Ocon-Bottas decision is affecting the whole grid. If Mercedes chooses Bottas and Ocon won't change to Renault or Racing Point, then he will either do a surprise move to Williams, for example, or leave F1, go to Formula E, IndyCar, or the other passions of motorsport. But let us be unrealistic and think about what happens if not Bottas, but actually Ocon will be driving for Mercedes in 2020. Then Bottas could go to Alfa, for example, as Giovinazzi is failing to perform. The confirmed Raikkonen is also a Finn, and Alfa makes huge progress from one season to another. If Alfa isn't interested in signing Bottas, then I think Bottas would leave F1. That would mean that the other teams have to look after their drivers on their own. Renault has confirmed Ricciardo for 2020, but his teammate Nico Hülkenberg is struggling all season long, which means that after his debut in 2010, 1 pole position and no podiums, 2019 could be the last F1 season of the Hulk if he fails, and Renault would replace him with their reserve drivers from Formula 2, Jack Aitken or Guan Yu Zhou. If that's the situation, then Aitken will drive in 2020 for sure. So now that we have discussed the whole Mercedes-Renault situation, let's come to my prediction, how I predict the field. And yeah, let's start with Mercedes. I said there are 2 possibilities, Bottas leaves or Bottas stays. And the only option for replacing Bottas is Esteban Ocon, because George Russell has a contract at Williams for next year. And now my prediction, who of the 2 will drive for Mercedes in 2020? And I think Esteban Ocon. I think it's like more unrealistic than realistic that they choose Ocon, but it would be clever in the future. So my prediction for 2020, Lewis Hamilton and Esteban Ocon. But if Ocon will not go to Renault on loan, who will then drive for Renault alongside Daniel Ricciardo? And I already said, if Nico Hülkenberg leaves the team, what is very realistic at the moment, then I think Renault chooses between the 2 F2 guys, Jack Aitken and Guan Yu Zhou. And in my opinion, Jack Aitken has the better F2 season and is more into the Renault F1 business than Zhou. So I think Jack Aitken will race alongside Daniel Ricciardo as a rookie at Renault in 2020. Nico Hülkenberg dropped out of Renault in my prediction, but where will he drive in 2020? I don't think he will leave F1 because he is still a very good driver who's very consistent and also has a lot of experience, and Haas, where I predict him for 2020, don't want to race with a rookie. Pietro Fittipaldi won't race for them next year. Kevin Magnussen, I already said before, I don't think that Haas drops both drivers. Only one, and Magnussen is driving the better season. That's a fact, I think. And Romain Grosjean, the last 2 seasons with this one weren't very good. Yes, Haas has to thank him for a lot in the past, not to forget the first race they ever had in 2016. But some eras have to come to an end. So I think they will replace him and he will leave F1 sadly, but he is still a very good racing driver for another series. But who will replace him? I already said it, my driver lineup for 2020 for Haas is Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg. Let's go on with Alfa Romeo, and if you already think, where the heck is Valtteri Bottas? Now it's his time to shine. Kimi Raikkonen is confirmed for 2020 as he signed a 2-year contract at the end of 2018. If he's still driving in 2021, that's in the future, but for 2020 he has a contract and will be driving for Alfa a second season. But his teammate Antonio Giovinazzi hasn't shown any good performances in the whole first half of the season. Only 1 point for Giovinazzi, and Giovinazzi already drove in 2017 for Sauber, and there he crashed out 3 times. I don't think F1 is the right place for the Italian. His finishes aren't that great, and also in the qualifying, Kimi Raikkonen with his 40 years still is a lot better than the young Italian. Valtteri Bottas once said he's open for a switch to Ferrari, and now that I predicted Esteban Ocon in the Mercedes, why Valtteri can't go into the Ferrari program? I mean, Alfa Romeo is a Ferrari team, and I think for current F2 drivers who already tested for Alfa, like Mick Schumacher, Juan Manuel Correa or Tatiana Calderon, it's still too early. They are all driving in Formula 2, but not with that amazing results. Yep, you can say Charles Leclerc also needed only 1 season to get up into Alfa Romeo Sauber, but he won the championship, and Schumacher, Correa and also Calderon are far away from that this season. So I think there's no reason against a change for Bottas from Mercedes into a Ferrari team like Alfa, because if Sebastian Vettel retires after 2020, then Charles Leclerc could have Bottas as a teammate, and Alfa can bring up some F2 guys like Schumacher, Correa or Calderon. I know it sounds very unrealistic, but in the end it's not so unrealistic, and it's very clever for Ferrari and also for Mercedes, because if Ocon fails at Mercedes, then Mercedes already can choose Russell. If they choose Bottas, they will have the same situation as this year again with Russell and Ocon, where they have to decide between both, and then to decide between 2 young drivers is very difficult. Although Russell then has the experience and time to shine, Ocon can either prove himself at Mercedes, and Russell can then go to Force India, Racing Point for example, and then if Ocon fails, they already know that they are going to provide Russell because Bottas is going to be old then. That's, I think, the most clever move they can do, but I don't think they do it sadly. But yeah, to come to an end, my driver lineup for Alfa Romeo in 2020, it sounds very weird, but I think it can be realistic. Kimi Raikkonen and Valtteri Bottas, 2 Finns at an Italian team. Now we've discussed 7 teams, and until yet only 2 stay the same in 2020. But now it's your turn. At the top right corner in the eye there is a poll where you can vote for your Mercedes driver, Ocon or Bottas. If Bottas to Alfa Romeo is realistic, who do you think will drive for Renault next year? And also your decision on the Haas driver lineup, Magnussen and Hülkenberg, Grosjean or Hülkenberg, Magnussen and another, Grosjean and another, or none of them two. Completely new driver lineup at Haas, but I think that's like the most unrealistic thing which can happen on the 2020 grid. And now let's go on with Team 8. And until the end, now every team is going to stay the same as they are at the end of the 2019 season. We start at Racing Point for the last 3. I said if Ocon changes to Racing Point, he will kick out Perez. Perez could then leave and go to Haas. But I think Perez will stay at Racing Point. Perez loves the project of Racing Point. He feels the team, and also when they had hard times, he always was somebody who was fighting for the team to be alive. Also, he is at Force India / Racing Point for a long time, and I don't think there is a need to end this chapter, and Perez wants to continue the journey after the stories he has lived through with the team. And partnering up with him, Lance Stroll, his dad was buying the team, so I think Lance Stroll is also nearly confirmed for 2020. And then, yes, I said the last 3 teams are going to be the same, so in the end only 5 teams changed their driver lineup compared to 2019 for 2020 in my prediction. And now we come to Red Bull Racing and Toro Rosso. This is very difficult as always, because Toro Rosso and Red Bull are like an A and a B team. They can promote someone, they can get someone from the Red Bull Driver Academy, they can bring someone back like Brendan Hartley or Daniel Kvyat. It's very, very difficult to say it. But this year I think it's a lot easier. They've dropped Gasly already at half of the season. He won't be driving in Red Bull for 2020. If Red Bull promotes him again, then it would be a miracle. And now it's up to Alex Albon. Will Alex Albon drive a good season and be ready for a full Red Bull seat in 2020, or will he fail like Pierre Gasly? Then he will get demoted, and Daniel Kvyat. It's like a roulette. So I think they cannot do much wrong. It's up to Alex Albon, who is driving in 2020 for Red Bull Racing alongside Max Verstappen. Toro Rosso, I think if Albon proves himself at Red Bull, Daniel Kvyat will stay for sure. And I think also Pierre Gasly, because Pierre Gasly can show good performances at Toro Rosso. I don't think that he can fail so much as he did in Red Bull. But if that's the case, then they have a war and also Dan Tickton. But I prefer to say they stay with Kvyat and Gasly, because I think that Alex Albon is doing a good job and Gasly won't fail again on this level. So the two driver lineups, Red Bull Racing, Verstappen and Albon, and Toro Rosso, Kvyat and Gasly. So that was a longer analysis. If you've watched it completely without timestamps, props to you. Then you can type hashtag 2020 will be nice in the comments. A bit sad that Alpay couldn't be in this video for long today because of his driver's license, but in the next video on Friday he will be there, because we have planned that on every race week we will bring a preview for the next race every Friday and a podcast discussing the most important things which happened in the race on Sunday. Only in the race weeks, and in general we have planned every 5 to 6 days there will be another episode of Racing or Ping Pong. So stay tuned to the next episode, be active, subscribe to this channel if you haven't, activate the bell to not miss future content, and also the Spa preview on Friday. Like this episode if it was a nice one, comment your thoughts on the driver lineup for 2020, which move you think can be realistic, which I predicted, or which move is complete bullshit. If you want, you can type your full driver lineup for 2020 in the comments. Would be very nice. We are always happy to read your comments you have written down and to see what you are reacting to our videos. But now it's time for the end card, and yep, the last sentence: always stay flat out through Eau Rouge.
That's radio on, actually.